Hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way, or the highway.
Alright guys, real talk here. I've been using AI generated voices for my podcast because it seems that they come out clearer and it's straightforward. As I say, I'm not looking for followers, I'm not looking for likes, I'm not looking for none of that. I'm looking for people who are interested in changing our condition. This month is my 71st birthday, and I wanted to do a video to address the vision that I have about the solution to Black liberation. It seems like in the middle of this year, around April, May, it felt heavy on my heart that it seems like the solution is plain, but no one is actually talking about implementing or even discussing the easiest solution to our problems. So I started a blog, started a podcast so that I could put it out in the air. And some people have reacted to it, some people have listened to it, and I've had a lot of people say, hey, I'm ready, what do we do, how do we do it? Well, I believe like in every movement, every sea change, every dramatic, life-altering, cataclysmic events, there are sections and there are jobs. My job is to, as I see it, is to place the vision before as many people as I can, and from there, hopefully someone will be able to bring it together in a way that serves the Black community. What I want to speak about today is this, and what we have to understand is there's been a serious psychological campaign in order to keep us in our situation. And this video today, I want to go back in time to look at what our leaders were saying and what they've done, and contrast that to what they've done, and then compare that to what I'm calling the Black Infrastructure Trust. If you've listened to any of my blogs or my podcasts or read my blogs, you know that the Black Infrastructure Trust is my blueprint for a solution to Black liberation. It's not a unique or monumental undertaking because the blueprint has always been a part of our community since 1865. But before I go any further, I just want to say this. Slavery was 246 years. Reconstruction, where we had a semi-taste of what democracy might be like, was only 12 years. Jim Crow lasted about 77 years, and the civil rights movement stopped them from killing us. It's been about 14 to 20 years. Now it seems like they are ready to stop that. They don't want to do that no more. So they doing some stuff. So if you've been aware and you're awake and you're in this country, it's time for us, if you were Black, to stop playing. Today, I want to talk about the false god of capitalism, from brainwashing to breakthrough, why Black liberation demands a different value system. The values we inherited, the deepest chains of slavery, are not iron. They are values, from the plantation to the boardroom, from Jim Crow to Wall Street. Black people have been pressed into a worldview that celebrates individualism and materialism, values that grew out of Europe's long history of scarcity, conquest, and competition. As Reverend Cleage Jr. once explained, the white man's individualism comes from a barren land where survival required hoarding and stealing.
White people are individualistic. White people are materialistic. And I think Dr. Clark is absolutely correct in the definition of Black civilization, African civilization. Communalistic, whole concept is different. But the white man's individualism and materialism stems from the fact that he comes out of a situation, a place where you could hardly live. You know, the barren land where you could hardly grow, no resources, where they had to fight each other just to keep alive, and where each person had to try to steal all they could to keep somebody else from getting it so he could stay alive. Now that builds individualism and materialism. Now he didn't have much in the way of materialism, but he had the need, the desire, so he built ships, he built guns, everything in order to take something from somebody else. Now you gotta realize that the black man came up in a wholly different kind of environment, where there was everything that a person needed. They didn't have to cheat and lie and steal to get enough to eat. Enough to eat was everywhere. Nobody had to take from somebody else. All the resources of the world were right there in the ground. They had everything. They didn't need to build ships and go conquer someplace else. If Africans built a ship, where would they go? Any place they went was worse than where they were. But the white man could build a ship and go any place, because any place he went was better than where he was. Anything that he could take was better than what he already had. So we're dealing with the cultures of two people that stem from the kind of situation in which they live. Black people today are trying to be individualistic and materialistic because we are now in a slave culture. The white man has dominated us so completely, we try to accept his values. What we've got to do is reject his values, go back and accept the old values that come from Africa, our own historic black values, and have a black value system that we put in opposition to the white man's materialism and individualism.
By contrast, the African continent nurtured civilization, rooted in communal abundance. Land, food, and resources were plentiful enough to be shared, not fought over. Today, the struggle for black liberation is not just about legal rights or political recognition. It is a struggle of values. Do we continue to imitate the culture of our oppressor, chasing wealth, status, and a system built to exclude us? Or do we recover our culture, our own heritage of communalism, and build institutions that embody it? This chapter of my life, I see clearly the problem. It seems so simple, it's infuriating not to be able to express it or to create it myself. But maybe all I'm meant to do is just provide it.
The statement for the Nation of Islam will now be made by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad by phone from his home. Go ahead, please.
Unless slaves who has been trodden down by the white race in trying to do something for self. We have not did nothing for self. I want the big white people to do something for us. I don't give 2 cents for a black man laying around Washington, Chicago, San Francisco, anywhere in the country, begging white folks to do something for him.
The false promise of capitalism. Capitalism promises freedom, but it delivers dependency. It whispers, work hard, climb the ladder, and you too can share in the American dream. Yet for black people, that ladder has been broken. Martin Luther King Jr. called materialism one of the three greatest evils of America alongside racism and militarism. In his Beyond Vietnam speech, he condemned a system that valued machines and profits more than human beings. Malcolm X declared that the American dream was a nightmare for black people because capitalism thrives on exploitation. You can't have capitalism without racism, he said plainly. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, insisted that capitalism was the enemy of black people worldwide. For him, liberation meant breaking with the system entirely. Angela Davis revealed how prisons and policing became tools for capitalist profit, turning black suffering into commodities. Each of these voices spoke the same truth. Capitalism is not neutral. It is not a system that can ever be reformed to love black people. It is a system born from slavery, and its survival depends on our continued exploitation. Brainwashing of individualism. The genius of white supremacy is that it convinces us to participate in our own oppression. It brainwashes us into believing that individual success equals freedom. Drive the right car, buy the right house, send your children to the right schools, and you can escape blackness, or at least escape its burdens. But this illusion has a price. Individualism isolates us from each other. It turns neighbors into competitors. It teaches us to measure ourselves by white standards, not by the health and strength of our community, but by how close we appear to their model of success. This is the slave culture Cleage described. We may no longer wear shackles, but our minds are bound by values not our own. The African alternative is communalism. Before capitalism, before slavery, before colonialism, our people had a different way. African societies did not thrive on hoarding wealth, but on sharing it. Land was not private property to be fenced off and sold. It was a collective inheritance. The wealth of the community was measured not in things, but in the well-being of its people. African communalism is not some romantic past. It is a living alternative, a blueprint for the future. Take for instance, the cost of buying in. Every time we buy into the capitalist dream, we pay a price. Economic. Black dollars leave black communities almost instantly, enriching white corporations while our own neighborhoods remain underdeveloped. Spiritual. We mistake consumption for identity, confusing what we buy with who we are. Social. We lose the ethic of collective responsibility, leaving too many behind in pursuit of individual escape. Psychological. We accept the lie that our value is measured by how well we mimic whiteness. March 2010, Travis Smiley hosted a Black Agenda Forum. Participants spoke about the state of the Black Union at an event titled We Count. The Black Agenda is the American agenda. They focused on challenges facing the African American community and the nation. The question of whether America was in a post-racial era after the election of President Barack Obama, and the future of race relations. At the beginning of the conference of all these black leaders, I find something very disturbing. They had a white man give the invocation. Wrong on so many levels. Black people, we have to realize white people, some may be good, but They are not our friends. In fact, they are our most deadliest enemy. And they had a white man pray over them.
And to those watching in the nation and around the world, we're delighted to have you join us for this conversation as well. I'm going to ask everyone to stand all over this auditorium. Y'all know how we do this. Everyone stand, grab a hand on either side of you, stretch across the aisles. And we are going to start today, as we always do, asking God's blessings on these deliberations. And to give us the invocation today, we invite to the microphone now the leader of the faith community of St. Sabina, Father Michael Pfleger.
Let us pray. God, who loves justice and who we know is truth and love and
The important thing is, does your lack of action contradict any of your basic principles?
I'll explain it. You should be happy that Muslims who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, number one, don't believe in any form of integration, and who believe that every mention of the word integration by whites, whether it be from the mouth of Kennedy on down to the mouth of the lowest, raggediest white liberal in the street who is beatnik-like involving himself in these integration efforts, if we believed in it, we would integrate, and we would fight anybody who got in our way or made any effort whatsoever to stop us from integrating. If we really believed that the law of the land, the Supreme Court, and other so-called judicial bodies were for real when they talked about integration, we would integrate. And knowing that the law was on our side, and any effort we made to demonstrate toward integration, why, we would know the law should be on our side, if it's the law of the land. If it is the law of the land, then the demonstrators are within the law, and the discriminators are against the law. But to show you the hypocrisy of the law, when Negroes demonstrate for integration, instead of arresting the discriminators, the law arrests the demonstrators. So this is a foolish move on the part of Negroes. And when you...
Malcolm said it right. And everything that he says has proven over the last 40 or 50 years. Breaking the cycle, the blueprint of the Black Infrastructure Trust. The Black Infrastructure Trust, BIT, is not just an organization. It is a declaration of independence from white capitalism. It rejects the false promises of individual wealth and instead builds a system rooted in African communal values. Child care. No parent left behind. No child neglected, because raising the next generation is a collective duty. Housing. Homes as community resources, not commodities to be exploited. Healthcare. Care for all, not profit from illness. Economic autonomy. Businesses owned by the people, serving the people, cycling wealth back into the community. BIT is the structural expression of what leaders from King to Macumbi have called for, a revolution of values that makes communalism real, not rhetorical.
Today's conversation is really about, as I said earlier, an African-American agenda. Whether or not there ought to be one, how it is that we engage one and advance one, that is to say, an African-American agenda in the era of Obama. How do we advance an African-American agenda in the era of Obama? And how do we do that in what many are calling a post-racial America? What about a black agenda in the era of Obama in a so-called post-racial America? I'm joined at this table by a number of distinguished Americans. I'll introduce them as we get to them in this conversation, but it's important for me to say at the top of this conversation that everything said around this table, and I hope when you get involved, everything said in this room will be rooted in love. That everything said at this...
Like I said, I want to contrast and compare how this black agenda has progressed since 2010, and whether the panelists, the people that, the black leaders who have such a massive stage, actually put into play the things that they believe were important to black people. So let's begin by looking at the concerns that were raised by this group of influential black people and contrast what they know to be the problem and since 2010 what they've done to address the problem.
An American empire that has been historically insensitive to the cause and claims of black people. So when I see Black Agenda, I say let's articulate what we need at this particular point in this post-racial era. And I'll end by saying this. I don't believe in a post-racial moment. I think we should have a post-racist moment. We should not look beyond the reality of race. We should look beyond the reality of racism. Black agendas are about America. When America is made best, black people stand up and articulate our visions, our dreams, our aspirations, our sentiments.
The best agenda for the nation. You turn to the 4th chapter of the great W.B. Du Bois' 1924 book, The Gift of Black Folk. And he talks about how black people emancipated democracy because we began with a constitution that was a pro-slavery document for 75 years. And we needed to emancipate white supremacist democracy into a multiracial democracy. And same was true with Jim Crow and Jane Crow. So the black agenda has always been the best agenda for the nation because it emancipated democracy, reconstructed freedom so that the least of these would be at the center or near the center of what it means to talk about public interest and common good.
Black America agenda that laid out these 10 issues that mattered most to black folk and what we were going to do about it and how we were going to hold folk accountable once we got to 2008. So back me up a few years.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and so happy that you have asked me about the covenant, because as we're thinking about this question of do we need a black agenda, I want to remind everybody that we have a black agenda. We have a black agenda, and that process of putting together the covenant was so much the way I think it always has to be if you're serious. Whenever my staff says to me, we're going to a meeting, I say, what's the agenda? When they say we're having a meeting, I say, let's put together an agenda. And the agenda is the starting point, but just putting together the agenda doesn't solve the problem. You have to really dig.
And in that is our problem. No one takes the time to create a plan that solves the problem. We can talk about what we need, we can talk about how to get there, but if no one has a plan and a way to execute that plan, then talking about the problems, that's useless.
You put together an agenda to be able to lead to some change and achieve something. I want to suggest that we have fallen down because not only did we do, here's the covenant with Black America, we said, here's the covenant in action. This is how you make it real. And when I go back and I look at the covenant in action, and I think about all the suggestions we made to the country about how we could make it real, we haven't done it. And so not only do I want to see us advance the agenda, I want to see us take it apart, disaggregate all those pieces, and ask, what do we want to hold others accountable for, and what do we want to be held accountable for?
That last part, what are we willing to be accountable for? what is central to African communalism is the community above self. And in order to make it work, we need consistency, we need commitment, and we need participation.
I should remind folks, since we're at this grand institution, Chicago State, on the south side of Chicago, that Covenant with Black America book, all the proceeds, all the profits from that book stayed right here on the south side of Chicago with Third World Press. They published that book, and all the profits and proceeds went to that the oldest black publishing company in this country right here on the south side of Chicago. Please welcome from the Rainbow Push Coalition, the Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr.
Thank you.
Reverend Jackson, Angela suggests, she doesn't suggest, she says very clearly that we had an agenda and we fell down.
Native Americans. And so the idea of a one big tent America is a new deal. Within that context, there are some Americans living in luxury and some living in pain. And that must, if your hand is cut to death, fingers cut, you don't wrap the four that's not bleeding, you wrap the one that's bleeding. And so our pain today, even as we deal with the healthcare challenge, and it is a real challenge, that in Chicago, 3,200 Black Americans die a year from health disparity. More die a year in this city from health care disparity than in the 9/11 terrorist attack 10 years ago. Obviously, those in the most pain must have some priority attention. Let's go.
Healthcare was an issue. Medical care, healing as a communal duty. In African societies, healing was never separated from community. Illness was not treated in isolation. It was understood as something that touched the entire family and village. The healer worked not only on the body, but on the spirit and relationships that held the person in community. White capitalist medicine, by contrast, isolates patients, inflates costs, and profits from sickness rather than health. BIT reclaims the communal ethic of healing, care that is accessible, affordable, and rooted in collective responsibility. How it works in practice. Community health clinics, collective operate clinics staffed by Black doctors, nurses, and practitioners. Preventative care is prioritized. Regular screenings, vaccinations, nutrition programs, and wellness education. Members receive care at little or no cost. Non-members pay reduced rates. Sliding scale and cooperative insurance. Members pool contributions into a health care fund, functioning as community insurance. Funds cover emergencies, prescriptions, and hospital bills without families falling into debt. Holistic healing. Services integrate Western medicine with African-centered wellness. Mental health counseling, herbal medicine, community fitness, and group therapy. Healing circles address trauma not just individually, but collectively. Mobile help teams. For rural or underserved areas, BIT supports mobile units that bring doctors and nurses directly to families. This ensures that no member community is left behind due to geography.
Sent to their friends on Facebook. Don't seem to understand that we have a responsibility that has to be played after Election Day. You can't vote change at the top of a ticket and think the job is done. Okay? We're going to have elections this fall. And if the turnout is what it is historically in off-year elections, the movement that all of us at this table are interested in, and the movement that the people in this room are interested in, is going to be in serious jeopardy. because we don't often understand that when you vote change at the top of the ticket, you have to continue to vote change all the way down to the grassroots.
I bring greetings from Bennett College for Women, the oasis where we educate and celebrate women and develop them into 21st century leaders and global thinkers. Thirdly, I want to give all props to Brother Wayne Watson here at Chicago State as a fellow HBCU president. We were just together with NAFIO's conference. We were both testifying on the Hill about the viability of our historically black colleges and universities. I want to thank all of you who do support our historically black colleges and universities, because we are your future. We are your future. And then, Tavis, let me say that this conversation about a black agenda is very productive here, but I've been very puzzled by the people who suggest or assert that there's no room for a black agenda. There has always been room for an anti-black agenda. Let me cite an 1831 law in North Carolina that says to teach a slave to read is to excite dissatisfaction to the detriment of the general population. This particular law then goes on to say that if you do teach a slave to read and you're black, you can be beaten, whipped up to 40 times, a white person fined $200. Now, $1831 was several years' income. So this is how dangerous our knowledge is. But somebody had severity to write down to teach a slave to read. So this is an anti-black agenda. David Walker's appeal, talk about a black agenda. David Walker, 1834, consistently pleading for the freedom of slaves. If you were found in the state of Louisiana with a copy of David Walker's appeal, you could be jailed, you could be killed. And so don't tell me about a black agenda when we know about an anti-black agenda. And so it is—
Exactly. And that's the point. The Confederacy never paid its debt because we never properly punished the Confederacy for its treason. America has been haunted by their ghosts ever since. They lost the Civil War on the battlefield, but they won the war of memory, power, and narrative. And that failure to hold traitors accountable still shapes the country we live in today. The monument stayed and the mindset spread. After the war, the South rewrote the story. They never admitted we fought to preserve slavery. Instead, they sold the country alive. We fought for states' rights. We fought for heritage. We fought for our honor. And America, the other white Americans, let them. Instead of burying the Confederacy in shame, we let them build monuments to treason. Stone and bronze statues went up on courthouse lawns and public squares, celebrating men who literally tried to destroy the United States. The losers of history got to rebrand themselves as heroes. That's why their descendants today feel bold enough to storm the Capitol while waving Confederate flags. They never stopped believing the lost cause was noble.
Agenda. And so it is just a natural outgrowth of the advocates like the Ida B. Wells and others that we should sit around this table and talk about that which is ours and that which we need. We're talking about social and economic justice. We're talking about the inconsistencies of President Obama this week signing, and we're glad he did sign, an $18 billion jobs bill, but about 2 years ago, it was a $700 billion bank bailout. So basically, the people at the bottom got like, what, 3% of what the people at the top got? Think about it. So you can bail banks out, but you can't put people back to work. There is a disproportionate—
Reconstruction was a chance to complete the work, but instead the North abandoned the project and left black people defenseless against a resurgent South. That failure of accountability is exactly why the Black Infrastructure Trust must exist. It is, in many ways, the continuation of Reconstruction under black management. Where the federal government abandoned us, we must pick up the work ourselves. The Confederacy was never held to account because Americans' institutions were too entangled with its wealth, too compromised by its myths, and too dependent on white power to truly break it. We cannot expect those same institutions to now deliver liberation.
Back to work. There is a disproportionality, an extreme disproportionality in the economic situation of African American people right now. Most recently released data on wealth. Average white family has wealth of $170,000. Average black family, $27,000. But let's break it even further. Single mothers have a median wealth of single black mothers, a median wealth of $5. $5. Sister Blackwell, can you imagine? $5. This is quantifiable data. Assets are access. Assets are access. So we do not have assets or access in this society. I don't want to hear the word post-racial again in my life. You know, not again in my lifetime. You know, in the same month that President Obama was sworn in, a young black man named Oscar Grant in Oakland, California, was handcuffed and shot with his handcuffs on his knees, begging for his life. He was a brother that they called a peacemaker. He was trying to make peace on his knees with a handcuff.
And that the federal response to housing. Black folk hit hardest when the housing bubble burst. The Curran study says that in housing, we've not been impacted by the stimulus. So if the answer from Washington is, Negroes, check out the stimulus, and Kerwin says the stimulus is not impacting black life in America, how do I read it? Talk closer to that mic. Get right on that mic. I want to hear you. Okay.
Dr. King said we'd take the moral authority. It's been 40 years since they murdered Dr. King. Yes. So we are wandering around in the wilderness, and it's time to come out.
Time to come out.
Now, I think that we have the responsibility to bring the question to the President of the United States. I don't care what color he is, because that's when you're dealing with the content of the character. It's not the color of the man. Yeah. It's about what's going on with our people.
Yeah.
When we look at black people today, and I come from the South, come out of the civil rights movement, I have never in my life, even in Jim Crow, we're in a new era of Jim Crow and black code. I've never seen black folks so fearful.
What'd you say? Fearful?
Scared.
You've never seen black folks so fearful and scared.
And scared.
Tell it.
Black folks are in pain. And this is the first time since we've been in this country that we've been in pain and didn't know what to do about it.
I have to remind you, this Black Agenda Conference was held in 2010. And housing is still an issue that hurts black communities the most. Homes as a collective inheritance, not a commodity. In African traditions, land and housing were never merely property to be bought, sold, or speculated upon. Land was sacred, a shared inheritance passed through the community for the benefit of future generations. White supremacy and capitalism flipped this value system upside down, turning homes into investment vehicles, driving gentrification and pricing black families out of their own neighborhoods. Bid housing model restores the communal principle. Housing is a right, not a luxury. Let's see how it works in practice. Community land trusts. Each collective sale purchases land through pooled contributions and places it in a trust. Housing built on this land is permanently affordable, never subject to market speculation. Families can own their homes while the land remains under community stewardship, ensuring affordability for generations. Cooperative housing development. Multifamily units are collectively owned, with each resident holding shares. Residents have equal say in maintenance, improvement, and governance. Monthly payment covers upkeep and reinvestment in the collective, not into landlords or banks. Anti-displacement funds. BIDs set aside emergency funds to prevent foreclosures or evictions. For member families, Rather than losing homes to banks or developers, families are stabilized and supported until recovered. Green and culturally affirming design. Homes are built sustainably, reduce costs for residents, public spaces are designed for community life, gardens, playgrounds, and gathering halls. Let's run through a scenario. A black neighborhood facing gentrification organizes a collective sale to purchase a block of housing through a land trust. Residents can stay in their homes at affordable rates. New housing is added for families in need. Developers cannot swoop in to flip the land because the trust guarantees that housing serves community members first. Let's look at another scenario. A big collective sale develops a cooperative apartment building where residents co-own the property. Instead of paying rent to an absentee landlord, they pay into the co-op fund, which covers maintenance, building reserves, and supports collective projects like child care and health care. The key principle, housing under bid, becomes stability and belonging, not speculation and profit. Recently, I saw a news report on a young lady in, I think it was St. Louis, I'm not sure, but she has created a community, and she does something that we should all think about doing, and that's land ownership. And the thing that she does is so wonderful. I just had to highlight it in the midst of this particular agenda, black agenda, to show that the possibilities are endless if we only work together.
5 years ago, Leah Lee Pulliam transformed her backyard into a hub for fresh food and learning. Now she can do more. 5 on Your Side's Travis Cummings followed her journey and shows us what's sprouting up next for this neighborhood and why it's so crucial.
We've outgrown the space where we were.
On a corner in St. Louis's West End, where vacant lots outnumber grocery stores, one woman is turning dirt into destiny.
Thank you.
Leah Lee Pulliam just signed on to new land, expanding a garden that's already blossomed from her backyard to the block.
The funding through the community, through grants, and we connected with LRA. This is 4 parcels of land, so it's a little over 11,000 square feet.
Just a few things you're thinking about for this space.
Pavilion, of course, more water access.
For 5 years, Pulliam has been growing food and people, giving away fresh produce, leading gardening classes for women, and running summer camps for kids.
We've been able to serve well over 500 people.
The mission is about more than food. It's about positioning people to be whole.
Teenagers who you could not peel away from their cell phones, ready and willing to serve the community food that they harvested.
Putting things into perspective for you, about 15,000 of lots like this one are vacant across St. Louis. 30% of children in our city are food insecure, and those with the least access to spaces like this are more susceptible to chronic illness.
The solution to hunger is so simple, really. It's right here. It's in the land. We just need to till the soil, put a seed in it, grow it, harvest it, and share it.
Sada Bernura with Food City STL helped Pulliam secure funding over the years and says food access is a human right, not a privilege.
Hunger and food access is looked at as like a personal failure, personal responsibility, right? But systems create the infrastructure that strips all that access away from us.
As more land takes shape, more lives will too.
Build relationships and connect through the soil and healthy food.
Well, guys, this has went longer than I thought it was going to go. I'm trying to piece it all together and get a coherent whole for you. But at this point right now, the thing about it is our lives should not be dependent on capitalism, racism, white supremacy, and what America does for us. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, do for self. So I'll leave you with that. Do for self. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. And definitely don't wait for this system to do it. The system is designed to defeat us, to exploit us. It will not free us. Until the next episode, this is Real Talk. And I want you guys to stay building and definitely stay black intentionally.